Now, she went on Marie TV and talked. There's a couple things that we can watch in this. Marie Forleo. Now, I would consider Marie Forleo boss babe, self-help. That's another book I read in like 2019 was Marie Forleo's book, Everything is Figure-Outable. And I really, really tried to like it. And I even, oh my God, I even wrote in my journal, like in my, actual journal that I have, like, okay, I'm going to try to be like Marie Forleo and everything is figure-outable and figure out my life. And when I actually look back and think of like the problems that I was going through and the problems that she was going through, I'm like, oh my God, I literally thought they were the same. She's like, I couldn't find a big enough studio space in New York to film my TV show. Well, her YouTube show. And then I, asked a friend and they found me a space last minute. Oh, everything's figure-outable. And then I'm like, I'm dealing with debilitating family trauma. We're like, just basically this book will help me for sure. I don't need any other help than this book. So Marie Forleo, she is the woman and the boss babe behind B School, like the $3,000 online business school that is not like going to real business school. In my opinion, I never took it. I cannot do a review on that for $2,000. I refuse. But basically it's like a marketing. If you want to launch your online business, Marie will teach you how to do it. And she also is self-help adjacent. Yeah. Taro's always in the bathroom.
He's always in the bathroom.
She's always in the bathroom. Okay. Here we go. And so we'll do like the little... The only big critique I have here is like a little one. Really, it's the biggest critique and it's tiny. It is like fun, wild girls, women don't sit in couches normally. We like to kick off our shoes and sit comfortably. This is something that Rachel Hollis started doing. I don't know when, but at some point she started to like curl up on the couch and like interview Tony Robbins. It's like the new thing to do, I guess, is like, we don't sit on couches anymore. We sprawl out during our interviews. And, I think that is a way to show your relatability personally. You don't want to look stuffy in these interviews. You want to look like, I'm just your gal pal. Now, whether you think that's manipulative or not, I could debate either way, but just something I noticed. And then, so we're going to skip over a little bit of it. But let's start in the beginning and then we'll skip to the 3 or 4 parts that I found to be sort of interesting.
In this episode of Marie TV, we do have some adult language. So if you have little ones around, grab your headphones now. Hey, it's Marie Forleo, and welcome to another episode of Marie TV and the Marie Forleo podcast. So today you are in for a treat. I have one of my dearest friends. She's a brilliant writer, and she's got a new book out that I know you are going to love. Glennon Doyle is the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Love Warrior, which was an Oprah's Book Club selection, as well as the New York Times bestseller, Carry On Warrior.
And neither one are totally relevant anymore because this book changes it all. And then the next book will be totally different maybe as well.
Glennon is an activist and speaker, and she's the founder and president of Together Rising. She lives in Florida with her wife and 3 children. Her latest book, Untamed, is available now. Glennon!
Hi, Marie.
I'm smashed. I know, my audio guy's like, what the hell is she doing? You guys, Untamed.
You guys. This book is so good, you want to beat your own legs with it.
I texted you from the plane. I was halfway through. I was bursting out of my skin because this thing is incredible. I was like, who is my friend? Who has my friend become? How has she become one of the most brilliant, moving writers I have ever had the pleasure of reading in my life? Like, I have so many damn underlines in here. I'm like, holy cow, this interview is going to be, I was like, texted you, like, how long do you have today? Because this conversation going to be big. Congratulations.
Thank you. I can't believe you said bursting out of your skin. That's what I want this to do. I want it to get women to burst out of their skin.
And it will. And it will. I have a feeling it's going to be top anything.
I feel like that's how I would conduct this interview. Oh, and it will indeed, Glenny. That's the type of stuff I would have in interviews. Oh, I'm sure it will.
That you can possibly imagine. So I love the line, when women learn how to please, we forget who we are. So for those in our audience who may not know who you are quite yet, or just may not be familiar with your story and your journey, can you share a little bit about what inspired you to write Untamed? And I will share another line. I'm be doing this a lot in this interview, you guys, basically telling Glennon about her own brilliant words. What follows is how I got caged and how I got free.
Well, who I am, I've spent the last 10 years writing and speaking about feminism, really, about women trusting themselves.
Capes, feminism. I mean, at least in that first one, which is like one, I'm sure she's spoken all over and a million times and it's changed. And so I, don't want to judge too harshly, but there was no feminism in that first one, the TEDx talk that I heard, and maybe feminism comes in different forms, but I didn't get feminism vibes from that one.
And believing in themselves and conspiring together and challenging institutions and ideas. And then I got all of that tested fairly recently, a few years ago. I was struggling for many reasons in my marriage. That was the last book. And I was at an event, and a woman walked in the door, and I looked at her, and 3 words swelled up in my being, and the words were, "There she is." And for a long time, I thought those words had come from on high, like this was some magical Disney moment. It took me a while to realize that those words had actually come from within, right? That I was actually hearing from the voice of the person I was before the world told me who to be, right? Because I felt...
Okay, isn't that the most Dave Hollis quote sentence you've ever heard? Now, I would guess that Dave would have gotten it from Glennon, not the other way around. But show up to who you were before you were supposed to be who you are. It's like, I don't know. I know there's things that our parents put on us, and there's things that society may put on us, like, go to college, get a good job, whatever, get married, have children. I get that. But I don't think that's who we are, and I don't identify that as who we are as people. Those are just things that people do. So this whole thing about, oh, this is the real me, the one that was the mother to these 3 kids already, and the wife and all that. I think that's still you too. I don't know. I just find it's like, oh, I'm different now. I am a person now. She was a different person in 2013 as well. She's like, I'm a fully whatever great human being now. After she kind of decided, after she got pregnant. Now she's doing it again. So who's to say it's not going to happen again? I don't know. And this is her describing, again, the meeting her wife for the first time and sort of the magical thinking of like, oh, I saw her. And it was like this magical moment. And it was I thought it was from God, but it was actually from within. And I don't find evidence of those things in my life. And maybe I'm just cynical. But, I think these sort of, oh, it was fate things tend to, down the line, disappoint us or keep us in things longer than we necessarily need to be, because we're like, this is divine. This is a divine relationship. This is not just a normal relationship that I can leave at any time. And maybe in this case it's not so much, but I think hearing the advice and you're like, well, when I met this guy or woman or whoever, something inside me told me like, oh, this is a good person to be with. Now 6 months later, the relationship sucks, but that voice 6 months ago told me this is the one, so I better stay. That's where I think I can go off course.
In love with her, and it was the first time I'd loved
who to
be, right? Because I fell in love with her, and it was the first time I'd loved someone beyond the people who I had been conditioned to love, right? And I wanted her so much, and it was the first time I had wanted something beyond who I'd been trained to want and what I'd been trained to want, right? So, so what unfolded next was this question, will I trust that voice? Will I trust myself? Because what I realize is it's one thing to be a feminist out in the world saying, believe women, trust in women. And it's quite another thing to become a woman who actually trusts herself.
Yes.
Right? Because the whole rest of the world, you can imagine that the whole rest of the world was saying to me, no, 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 no. About sort of upending my life and following my truth to love Abby. But I think that's kind of when you realize that you're starting to untame, when the whole rest of the world is going, no. And you're going, yeah.
You're like, this is the good stuff.
You're like, if this makes
Sure, okay. I don't think the whole world was like, you must be with a man and your husband. There is no alternative. If anything, the world really got on board with Glennon after she came out with, hey, I'm in love with this woman. People, I think, and I'm sure she lost a lot of fans, but even more people got on board with her message and things. So I don't think she really told the world to fuck off. She really said, embrace me, and they did. So, I mean, great. I'm happy for her, but I don't think it's necessarily the FU that she's sort of making it seem like it was.
No sense to the world, then this must be me finally hearing from myself.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And for those who don't know your journey specifically, all of this was going down when your last book was like soaring to the top of the charts. Oprah had you on the show. We're talking about marriage. You're a faith-based person. There's like all of these different layers, and it's like, whoa.
And life is inconvenient that way.
Yes.
Right? You'll get tested right at the moment. You'll get tested. The universe will say, that's nice that you're out there preaching that. Do you believe it?
Yeah.
Right? Because, I announced my divorce, I think, a few weeks before my book came out that was touted as a marriage redemption story. And this is life.
Yes.
Right? This is life.
Yes. So before we go any further, we have a lot of writers and aspiring writers and creators in our audience. And I want to take a little bit of a right turn for a minute into the structure of the book because I get asked a lot of questions about,
The only other thing too, just a side note before I forget, she's about to talk about like how the book is untamed and the way she wrote it, and like the cover is kooky, crazy. She's very wild. It's not like she moved to a commune and like lives, I don't know, in a windmill or something. Like she's like, I ditched convention. It's like you married a woman, but you also are in the institution of marriage. You have a podcast, like, there's a lot of things that she's still doing that are pretty normal and like, accepted in society. I think there's a lot of like self-congratulations. Like and she's going to talk about like her analogy of a cheetah and how cheetahs are bred to be, tamed at the zoo, and how she and others are really meant to be wild and crazy. It's like, wild and crazy for the average person, not even. Like, you got married to a woman. Like, that's the crazy part that she did. I'm sort of missing the other element of like, everything was nuts from then on. I have no rules anymore. It's like, okay.
My gosh, I have this other idea for a book, or I want to write my first one. How do I do it? And what I so appreciated about yours was it's like these little, I would call them almost like little chapterettes, like toastettes, like little delicious pieces of toast that I want to put tomatoes and mozzarella on. And then we go into an area that there's like Q&A, and then it's different. It is untamed in its structure. And so I'm curious from the craft of writing side, did you go in with that intention, or did the book kind of reveal that to you as you were writing it?
It felt to me, writing this book, art feels to me the same way that religion or sexuality, all these categories that we have, right? So I have this like wild faith inside of me, right? This unique, wild idea about who God is and who I am and how we co-create together. And then I get this blueprint for religion. And I'm like, not that. It doesn't fit in there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I have a sexual identity, right? That's like weird and different, and I can't really explain, and was different last year than is this year. And then they're like, here's the blueprints for sexuality. And I'm like, I don't fit. What's in here, the wild in here, doesn't fit inside there, which is what a lot of people are saying now, which is why our old ideas of sexuality are crumbling.
Yes.
And our old ideas of religion are crumbling, right?
Yes.
Same with art. I wrote this book.
And I'm not saying that this is what she's saying, but it almost comes off as like, I was the first lesbian, like I was the first one to discover you didn't have to marry a man. You could actually marry a woman. What? And like, you don't have to go to church. You could just believe whatever you want. It's like, oh my God, what? And this is in 2020. I'm just, I'm nitpicking here, but it seems a little bit outrageous. Like, yeah, you bucked convention, but you also wrote 2 books previously, pretty in line with like your religious upbringing from what it seems. And now the 3rd one, you're like, okay, now I'm ready to live in my truth. It's like, great, awesome. But like give it some time maybe to feel it out before proclaiming like you have the answers. But like I said, I'm nitpicking here. She's not a horrible person. Okay. Just for the record, everybody, leave me alone. I'm just kidding.
Which is really about getting that wild inside out into the world.
Am I the only lesbian? Guys, I have a new concept. It's called lesbian. What do you think? What do you think about it? I'm going to try it on.
And living with integrity, which means that our insides match our outsides, right? In a very structured way at first. It was like, it was essay after essay about what it means to be a woman in the world. And I sat down with a dear friend and was figuring out, why isn't this working? And by the way, this was 100,000 words in, okay?
Yeah. That's no small amount.
No, at that point, you're like, I'll just make this work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we figured out, oh, you're writing a book about being untamed, and you're trying to put it in an old structure that's been created by somebody else.
Yep.
You're trying to birth this thing, this idea. I mean, art is just about having a vision inside of us and somehow through like all this blood, sweat, and tears, making it real in the world.
Yep.
You have this particular wild vision inside of you and you're trying to fit it into somebody else's structure. Burn it, throw it away, let it all burn. Start over. I wrote it, the opening vignette is about a cheetah. I wrote it like that cheetah. Like, I want to run through this. I don't want to second guess myself. I don't want to try to fit it into anybody. I want the reader to be breathless by the end.
Yep.
Right? That's how I wrote it. And I think it feels wild.
It does. It feels fantastic. And when I say it makes sense, I mean on an intuitive.
Okay, let me write that down. It feels fantastic is another good soundbite. 8 minutes in. You're right. I saw someone's comment. Let me bring it up. Juliana Santos. Thank you. I think you're right. That's a good point. That, being a lesbian and being older and exploring, you're right. It is. I think I sort of take their word. I'm saying there as in some of these other self-help people too, when they go, we all do this. I did this and this is how the world reacted. Like, she was the one who said, the world didn't want me to be the way I truly am. And I just find that to be not true. Maybe in her world, her parents, her whatever, weren't on board. Yeah, and that is difficult. But I think she's almost putting all of this onto everyone. And I'm just saying there's a lot more people who are for it and supportive than there were most likely, at least from evidence of her growth in the last 2 years, who are supportive than were, dismissive of it. Not to say it takes away from the pain and the scariness and the bravery that it took for her to do what she did. But she's not the first one. That's all I'm saying.
And soulful level, not necessarily from a logical structured place, because that's why I was like, yes, I was like, even how this book unfolds is untamed. And so I'm curious, like from like the publishing standpoint or editing standpoints, did you get some pushback initially or yes? Okay,
yeah.
cool.
I feel like if you don't get some pushback initially, that means you're not doing anything new.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
So it's very interesting to be an artist because your job is to always push the envelope, to always do the next thing that no one's ever seen before.
Yes.
But inherent in that is that you're bringing that new thing to a structure that is built on, but all of these other things have worked.
Totally.
Right? So it is your job as the visionary to push back on that. It is their job, by the way, to still say, yikes.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so important to be with a team, be with an editor, be with a publishing house that believes in your vision even when they're afraid.
Absolutely. We experienced that with Everything is Figure Outable too. And I was really grateful to have people that I could have those tough conversations with and that we could go back and forth. And like for me, to be able to just remind them like, hey, here's why you invested in me. Yeah. Because you saw something different, that I was going to do something a little different. So yeah,
and you trust your people that they'll get it, right?
Yes.
And it's not just with art, it's with your life.
And, you know, again, here is like, you know, you just need to have a publishing house who agrees with you. It's like, you know, how many aspiring writers would love to have any book deal whatsoever? It's like, just get like a publishing house that's, you know, in line with your vision. It's like, okay, the reason why you have the publishing house that's okay with your vision now is because you wrote 2 bestsellers already about your marriage, and now, you know, now they're willing to take the risk. It just, you know, again, not bad advice, nothing toxic about it, but it's just like unrelatable to most people that are probably watching this and going, yeah, I have an idea for a book. It's like, oh, my advice is to just get a publishing house that agrees with you. It's like, okay, well, how?
It's with your relationship.
Yes.
It's with the way that you speak about your faith. Like, oh my God, that's scary. That doesn't fit into the mold. I think they'll get it.
Yes. 100%.
I think they'll get it. And even if they don't agree, they're going to feel that. They might not say, they're going to feel the truth and the beauty in it.
That's right.
Right? We're not trying to be right. And when you're an artist and they say that won't sell, you have to say, okay, all right. I'd much rather make what's real and true and see what happens than change this thing to fit what you tell me will happen next.
Yes. Absolutely. You talked about the cheetah story, which, by the way, come on.
Love a theme.
Let's stay on theme, baby. So the story about the cheetah and the dirty pink bunny, oh my God, I was laughing, but also the metaphor of that just struck me so hard. I'm wondering if you can share that story, because I think it alludes to the fact that so many of us begin to get caged at a very early age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that, Dave, because you know, like when you're messing with ideas in your mind and then you see the metaphor for it in the world, there's like, no more exciting moment, right? Yes. So I'm at the zoo, this like safari park with my daughters, and we go to this.
What if it was Joe Exotic? Actually, it could be the one with Carol Baskin, because she lived in Florida at the time. So and then Naples is not that far away from Tampa, which is where Carol Baskin's sanctuary is. And if you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about Joe Exotic, the whole documentary about the tigers and all that. So maybe there is a cheetah at the park that day. We'll never know.
Thing called the Cheetah Run. It's the park's big event for the day. And the zookeeper comes out and she's holding the leash of a lab. And I'm like, what? So she says, is this our cheetah? The kids all say no. And she said, you're right. This is Minnie the lab. We raised Minnie alongside Tabitha the cheetah so that we could tame her. And now Tabitha and Minnie are best friends, and Tabitha does whatever Minnie does. And something about, then we watched the cheetah run. Tabitha, Minnie went first, and they attached this pink stuffed dirty bunny to a Jeep, this little Jeep. And then the Jeep took off, and Minnie the lab chased the dirty pink bunny, right? Tabitha watches from her cage. Open the cage, Tabitha walks out, just majestic, gorgeous, muscles rippling.
Gorgeous, gorgeous
and
cheetah.
This gorgeous, majestic creature stands at the freaking starting line and chases this dirty pink bunny. Why is this wild animal following this worn path, settling for this applause of these spectators when she could turn to those zookeepers and tear them to shreds if she remembered her wild, right? Why is she doing it? Because she's been tamed, because she's been raised to be a lab. And it just struck me that, holy crap, if a cheetah, if a freaking
women should all rip apart everyone they come in contact with. God, why didn't I think of this? Oh. Just commit predator-prey activities on everyone.
Freaking cheetah can be tamed to forget her wild. Certainly a woman can too.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then I started thinking about
totally
all of the dirty pink bunnies that women are trained
to chase. Yes.
Right? You think about, I talked to a group of women recently, and they were not, at first they weren't buying this cheetah thing, and I was like, okay, all right, I want you to start talking to me about all of the things that you were taught to believe about what makes a good girl. What makes a good...
Now, I think this is also a Rachel Hollis connection, and we can watch that next about Rachel, the similarities, and sort of that is Rachel trying to be Glennon, and the timeline that, you know, sort of supports that maybe, yes. But yeah, a good girl. Who wants to be a good girl? Like, we're told all these things. This is a trope, and I hate to call it a trope, but it is, that I hear with a lot of motivational speakers, especially motivational speakers that are in the making, like not wannabes, that's a mean word, but like ones that are up and coming or ones that are getting started in the industry. And the only reason I know that a little bit is because I've worked with some of them and like for companies where I'll edit their speaker reels for a while. And I got to, listen to all their motivational speeches. And a lot of people who have no qualifications, like basically they're life coaches, but they're trying to start a motivational speaking career too, to get clients. I don't know, let's say I did 200, 150 of the women would say their whole story was, I had everything. I did everything right. I got married. I had children. I worked hard. I got a college degree, and I still wasn't happy. I didn't solve all of my problems. It's crazy. So I'm here now to say that I am a life coach, and I healed myself by being a life coach. I don't know. They never had a solution as to what changed, what they actually did to go from unsatisfied in life, despite doing it all right, to the end result of now they're there to coach you to live into your truth or whatever the fuck, which I don't know what that means in real terms. And I just find it's like, yeah, like a lot of people, especially people who are of lesser means, are not as, rich. Yeah, like I think they think like, oh, I'm rich and I'm, I have everything at my disposal. I should be happy. And it's like, yeah, well, there's more to life than that. There's much more. There's community and family and friends and things that are, driving you forward and whatever. And it's like, yeah, no shit. It's almost like, yeah, you just figured this out. I don't know. Maybe I'm being mean and maybe everyone thinks like, yeah, if you went to college, then you should be happy. It's like, I don't know. I think most people know that by now, but maybe these people late to the game, they just write a book about it and they profit unbelievably. So maybe I'm the idiot that doesn't know that this is not a widely known concept, that there's more to life than like success and money, but I don't know.
Good wife. What makes a successful woman? And they just started, be quiet, be small, be pleasing, be
nice.
Accommodating, be nice, be humble. And then, there's your dirty pink bunnies.
Yeah.
Be perfect, be thin, be beautiful, be faultless, be over and over and over again. And then we wonder why we are unfulfilled, why we are exhausted, why we are overwhelmed and underwhelmed at the exact same time. It's because we were meant for wildness, but we're chasing these dirty pink bunnies that somebody else put in our path.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
So yeah, that's the cheetah. I think like it was so cool because later they led Tabitha into this field, and then the zookeeper started talking about cheetahs that were raised in captivity. Right? And a little girl raised her hand and said, "But does Tabitha miss the wild?" And the zookeeper said, no. Tabitha was born here. She doesn't know any better, right? Or she doesn't know any different. And Tish, my daughter, was watching Tabitha in that field, and she pointed to Tabitha, and she said, "Mommy, she changed." So I look over at Tabitha, and Tabitha is a different animal, away from the zookeeper, away from the dirty pink bunnies. Her posture has changed. She's looking regal. She's looking fierce. She's kind of stalking the periphery of the fence, looking beyond the fence.
On an unsuspecting zoo goer.
Her, and Tish looks at me and she goes, "Mommy, she turned wild again." And I thought, that's what happens because Tabitha has never seen the wild. It's in her.
Yes.
Right? And that's what women are feeling. It's this like restlessness, this stalking of the periphery. This is all I've seen. All I've seen is a bunch of minis.
Yeah.
Right? But I know I'm meant for something different.
I don't know if it's like my brain doesn't work good. My brain no work good. But this doesn't work for me. I'm not saying what she's saying is wrong. It doesn't connect with me. Like I can hear analogies all day and I'm like, tell me as like a person living today, a 31-year-old aspiring YouTuber with a lot of insecurity, but also fairly, stable now, and wanting to fulfill, you know, a normal but good life. How do I do that? Like, tell me what I should do. And then someone goes, you know, cheetahs are wild. It's like, okay, but what should I do? Like, do you think I should try an art class? Like, I just need practical tips. So a lot of this stuff gets like lost on me. I'm like, I'm out. I don't know like how this relates. And I think it resonates with a lot of people because people put whatever they want into it, and for it to mean whatever they already want it to do. But then again, like, what do you even need the self-help book for then? If you already know what you want, you're just asking the book for permission. Glennon Doyle doesn't need to give you permission. No one does. If you want to fucking leave your marriage and marry someone else, there's no one in the world stopping you necessarily, but like the current partner you have may not sign the papers. I don't know. But I think it's good to remember, like, yeah, this is fine, whatever, read the book. But you didn't need that book to take the steps in the first place. You could have skipped ahead 20 steps and go, you know what, I'm going to take responsibility. Okay, here at 23 minutes, she talks about her daughter. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. I don't mind it in this case. Like, it's not like a Heidi Powell saying her daughter has like, you know, ringworm or whatever, like completely outs her. I don't mind this type of story about your kids in content too much. It doesn't bother me that much.
To recess, like, Marie, I'm not kidding you when I tell you that for months.
Okay. I just think she was a little mean. This is about her daughter liking polar bears, and her kind of analogy with this is sort of so funny and interesting in contrast to the cheetah story, because her daughter's like obsessed with polar bears. Well, she'll tell the story and I'll give my reaction.
Bulimia. I became bulimic when I was 10. And
oh, okay, wait, go back 1 second. So she said she was 10 in the TED Talk. It was 8. I just point, not to say that she's lying or something. That was sort of something I picked up on.
And I had all the big. And so I started numbing myself with bulimia. I became bulimic when I was 10. And I spent the next 25 years in a cage, trying to protect myself from my muchness, right? I was too much. Numb, food, booze, but all the things. And then I'm raising my little girl, right? And sometimes it just takes looking at the world through another person's eyes, especially a child, to forgive yourself and figure out who you really were. And she has so much. Big feelings, big all the things. She was, this is a good example of her. So when she was in kindergarten, her teacher called me and said, Glennon, we have an issue. And I was not shocked. She said, I just accidentally may have mentioned to the kids about global warming and that the polar bears were losing their homes. And she said the rest of the kids were sad about that, but able to soldier on to recess. She said, Tish is still sitting in the middle of the carpet. She keeps asking me questions about polar bears. She keeps asking who's gonna step up for the polar bears. Where's the polar bear's mom? I can't get her to go out to recess. Like, Marie, I'm not kidding you when I tell you that for months our freaking family's life revolved around polar bears. We had polar bear posters on the wall. We adopted 4 freaking polar bears from Antarctica. I don't know if there's some website. It got so bad that at one point I asked my friend to please email me and pretend that she was the president of Antarctica and tell me that the polar bears were now in fact fine, because I just couldn't take it anymore, this child. And so one night I'm getting ready to put Tish to bed and I'm walking out the door and I hear Mommy and I'm like, Jesus, no. And I go back and I say, what's wrong? And she says, it's the polar bears. And I said, oh, hell no. Hell no. And she said, Mommy, it's the polar bears now, but nobody cares. And so tomorrow it'll be us. And then that little brat fell asleep. And I was like, oh my God, the polar bear. Holy shit. And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, oh my God, she's not crazy. She's a prophet. Right?
Yes.
Like the sensitive freaking kids, basically her teacher just told her the world is ending.
Yes.
And then then is like, can you just like carry on? What I figured out is these...
I don't know. This one, I was like, to me, it seems like she was sort of making fun of the child. And it sounds like her kid has You know, I don't think she's a prophet necessarily, but I think she could be an activist. She seems to have dedication to a topic. She seems to be interested in science in some way, biology, climate change. Like, she's sensitive maybe as a takeaway, but like, I think that shows a lot of promise. And the fact that your kid is interested in like adopting a polar bear at like 9 years old or 6 years old, I think I'd be telling this story like, I am the proudest mom ever. This is the best. I'm 31, like I said, and I'm like adopting manatees. Like, you know, should I look at myself and go, shut the fuck up? No one wants to hear about the manatees. I thought that was kind of like a very positive thing. And I get like, you know, okay, we got to talk about other things, but it's kind of a cool hobby as opposed to, you know, I don't know, something else that might be more destructive or more, you know, concerned with like, I don't know, dancing or something like, oh, I gotta do the dance club and we gotta drive everywhere. I don't know. It just seems like out of the options, like polar bear obsession, probably good for me. I don't know. And then her reaction sort of like, oh my God, shut up. I couldn't like take it anymore. I just wanted her to be quiet. And then I thought like, oh, she's just sensitive. That's good, I guess. It's like, okay, I guess that's one way to look at it, but I'm not a mom. So maybe it just like gets to be too much, but I just thought it was a little bit of an odd take.
Sensitive souls, they're like standing on the bow of the Titanic going, iceberg, iceberg, and everybody else is like, we just want to keep dancing. Right? And like these sensitive souls in most cultures and throughout history have been identified as important to the culture. They're the shaman, they're the medicine men, they're the poets, they're the clergy. They're the ones that are a little different, a little eccentric, because they can see things that other people can't see, hear things other people can't hear, feel things that other people can't feel. And so they are honored as weird, but crucial to the culture.
How are they weird?
Survival. Yes.
Am I biased? I'm like, that's not weird. That's like a very normal and thing we should try to normalize too, is like caring for animals. She literally wrote a book about being wild and like getting yourself out there into the wild. It's like polar bears in the wild? No one cares. No one cares about your fucking polar bears, child of mine. Like, okay, she's weird, but you know, she's a prophet, so it's fine. It's like, is it? I don't know. I think she has a lot of takes that are personal to her and like personal preferences that are just not the worldview. But then again, maybe I'm the one with the more niche perspective and she's the one with like everyone else believes that. Maybe.
But our culture is just so hell-bent on efficiency that we call those people broken, like they did with me, instead of understanding that they are responding appropriately and importantly to a broken system.
Amen.
Right?
Who but you called her broken? I mean, the teacher at school maybe was like, oh, you know, she's interrupting the class now talking about polar bears. That's one thing. But I don't think, again, the world is going to label your daughter for caring about polar bears as broken. I could be wrong, but I just don't find that to be the real thing, the real message there. But anyways, okay, let's skip ahead to 42. I wrote down unrelatable. I'm not sure what the point was, but we'll find out. Let's see.
That frees other people to free themselves too, right?
Start there.
He said that while they were filming a show together, he poked his head.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait. Skipping ahead.
Speak in public. Folks are really afraid of criticism, afraid of the pushback that comes back. And I thought it was interesting. You wrote about that it's easier for the world to love a suffering woman than it is to love a joyful woman. And that someone stood up at an event that you were speaking at and just said, you know, I used to really be able to relate.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So someone talked to Glennon and said, I don't relate to you anymore because your life is so different than your first two books, which fair. I mean, yeah, obviously, like it is. If you fell in love with the woman telling you, hey, my husband cheated, but I'm going to make it work. And here's our redemption story. And that was your cup of tea. You're probably not going to like the third, like not the sequel, but like, what do you call it? The throuple? I don't know. The throuple of it? The third edition where it's like, actually, never mind. We're divorced. I'm marrying someone else. I don't think, yeah, that's hard to retain that audience.
Someone stood up at an event that you were speaking at and just said, you know, I I used to really be able to relate to you, and now I don't really relate to you anymore. I've heard versions of this, like, I used to like you when you had the brick wall. I'm like, bitch, I'm growing. Like, do you know what? It's just.
Absolutely.
Can you, what was your experience of that?
Well, criticism comes in all kinds of forms to women, but I think in terms of women who are untaming, this is going to be the one that they get the most often. I was at an event recently, but it happens all the time recently, where a woman will stand up and say, you know, when you used to talk about suffering and pain and being miserable all the time, I related to you. But now, like, I don't know, ever since you married Abby, I find it harder and harder to relate to you. So I understand that. Okay, I was at my daughter's soccer game recently, and there was this girl on the other team. She was just rubbing all of us soccer moms the wrong way. I don't know. I was looking at my friends, and they're like, and I kind of felt this on the inside too.
Yeah.
And so I'm like now learning that my knee-jerk reaction is my conditioning.
Yeah.
It's important we can forgive ourselves for it, right? Our knee-jerk reaction is our conditioning. It's not our wild. So every time I have a bitchy response like that, I think, okay, what's going on here? So I'm watching her. This girl, she is walking around like she owns this field, right? The other annoying thing is she's on the other team and she's very good, right? And she doesn't even look like she's trying that hard. She's just like, and so I'm going through this annoying thing, and I'm thinking, oh my God, Glennon, she is 12. She is 12, and you don't like her because she's confident, right? So what's going on there is our conditioning, which is it's proven. We know after study that the more confident, successful, joyful a man becomes, the more people like and trust him. Mm. And it's a bell curve. The more joyful and successful and fierce and bold a woman becomes, the less we like and trust her.
I want to see the studies on that. I don't know. I hear this a lot, and probably a lot of you will be like, you have internalized misogyny and you are part of the patriarchy, and maybe that's true. But, I think sometimes maybe it's, but I don't like men or women who shove stuff down your throat. As much as I can criticize, I don't know, like a Kim Kardashian, I don't think, I'm trying to think of a male that I like. Kanye is, Kanye is allowed to do it, but Kim, no, absolutely not. Like, I just think just being boastful and being like, I'm so rich, look at my cars, look at my Grant Cardone. I see it exactly the same way as how I don't like him for doing what he does and flashing all his shit everywhere, or Ed Milet, or any of them that like, I'm so rich. Like, women or men, I don't like it. And I don't know what study is like. I hate women who are successful, but I love men who are successful. I want to see it because I find it just to be a character trait. And maybe it's the character trait that women take on as like, they have made it, so they show it off more, and that becomes like more annoying to people. Maybe, I don't know. It just seems like, I don't know, an assumption maybe on people.